Hollywood's biggest legends have seen it all, yet they are completely mesmerized by one South Korean septet. Why do Oscar winners and musical icons obsessively watch BTS? What exactly are the industry's most respected veterans seeing that you might have missed? The real truth will completely change your perspective. Number 9. The SNL Pandemonium, Emma Stone. When you are an Academy Award-winning Hollywood A-lister, you are fundamentally used to being the center of attention. You walk into a room, and the temperature changes. People stop, stare, and whisper. Emma Stone, the star of cinematic masterpieces like La La Land, The Favorite, and Poor Things, is Hollywood royalty. She has worked alongside industry titans, stood on the Oscars stage, and navigated the upper echelons of the global entertainment industry for well over a decade. But on the week of April 13, 2019, inside the legendary Studio 8H at 30 Rockefeller Plaza in New York City, Emma Stone realized very quickly that she was not the main event. She was hosting Saturday Night Live for her fourth time, a massive comedic honor, but a historic cultural earthquake was happening right beside her. The musical guest for the night was BTS, and they were about to tear down a massive invisible wall in the American entertainment industry. To understand why this moment completely rewired Emma Stone's brain, you need to understand the absolute gravity of the context. This wasn't just another late-night gig. BTS was making history as the very first South Korean musical act to ever perform on Saturday Night Live, a cornerstone of American pop culture since 1975. And they were doing this just one day after dropping their massively anticipated EP, Map of the Soul, Persona. The tension, the anticipation, and the sheer media pressure surrounding New York City that weekend were unprecedented. SNL has seen legendary performers like Prince, Nirvana, and David Bowie, but what happened outside the studio that week was something the SNL crew had barely ever witnessed. Fans, the absolute force of nature known as ARMY, literally camped out on the concrete streets of New York City for days. They slept on the pavement, enduring the unpredictable and often freezing April weather, all for a slim chance to secure a standby ticket to watch 7 men from South Korea perform live. When Emma Stone saw this, she was utterly floored. In subsequent interviews, she vividly described the scene as an absolute pandemonium. For a seasoned actress who has attended the most exclusive red carpet premieres in the world, seeing human beings sleep on the street for days just to catch a glimpse of a musical act was a massive reality check. It proved that this wasn't just a fan club, this was a global movement. It was exactly this unyielding passion from the fans that pushed Emma's own curiosity into its highest gear. But the real turning point for Emma Stone didn't happen during the live broadcast. It happened behind closed doors, during the tightly controlled environment of the SNL soundcheck. Let's talk facts. Emma Stone later appeared on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon and laid her absolute truth on the table. She confessed that while she was watching RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook rehearse, something inexplicable happened to her. She didn't just casually nod her head to the beat. She told Jimmy Fallon, "I watched their soundcheck today and I screamed unconsciously." Think about that for a second. An Oscar-winning actress, surrounded by seasoned television producers and crew members, completely lost her professional composure and screamed. She elaborated, describing the experience as a literal chemical reaction happening inside her body. "They can't be trusted," she joked, pointing out just how dangerously magnetic their stage presence is. This wasn't a PR stunt. This wasn't a scripted soundbite. This was a raw, visceral reaction from a woman who deeply understands the mechanics of performance art. Emma Stone knows what it takes to sing, dance, and command a camera. She literally won her first Oscar doing exactly that in La La Land. But seeing the razor-sharp precision, the relentless energy, and the synchronized perfection of BTS's live choreography up close completely shattered her Hollywood armor. The promotional videos for that SNL episode perfectly encapsulated this reality. In one of the promos, Emma Stone and cast member Cecily Strong are surrounded by BTS. The two women are visibly shaking, crying, and hyperventilating in the presence of the septet. While it was a brilliantly executed comedic sketch leaning into the fangirl stereotype, Emma later admitted that the emotions were terrifyingly close to reality. She was genuinely flipping out on the inside. During the live broadcast, the energy inside Studio 8H was fundamentally altered. Typically, an SNL audience is a polite mix of tourists, comedy enthusiasts, and industry insiders. But that night, the room was supercharged with armies who had managed to secure seats. Emma felt this kinetic energy firsthand. Every time she or a cast member even breathed the name BTS during a sketch, the studio erupted into ear-piercing screams. Even Colin Jost and Michael Che during the Weekend Update segment were visibly taken aback by the sheer volume of the crowd's reaction. But the absolute climax of the night was the performances themselves. Emma stood on that iconic stage, looked into the camera, and introduced them. She introduced Boy With Love, featuring a live band arrangement that highlighted their stable live vocals and effortless charisma. But it was their second performance that truly showcased their duality. Emma returned to the mic, her voice laced with an undeniable, authentic thrill, yelling, once again, BTS, before the group launched into mic drop. This wasn't a bright, poppy track, this was a heavy, aggressive, hip-hop masterpiece that demanded absolute physical endurance. The choreography was brutal, precise, and completely unapologetic. They devoured the stage. For an American audience watching at home, many for the first time, it was a sudden and lethal wake-up call. The standard for live television performances had just been aggressively raised. For Emma, witnessing this duality, from the vibrant charm of Boy With Love to the absolute ferocity of mic drop, solidified her respect for their artistry. She saw firsthand that they were not a one-trick pony. They were chameleons who could seamlessly transition between genres while maintaining a level of synchronization that most Western groups couldn't even dream of achieving. Backstage, Emma observed an entirely different side of BTS. She noted how incredibly serious and deeply focused they were. They weren't messing around or letting the historic moment go to their heads. They treated the iconic SNL stage with the immense, heavy respect it demanded. They were professionals operating at the absolute peak of their craft. After the explosive live performance, Emma finally got the chance to formally meet them backstage. She took pictures with the members and even received signed merchandise. In her own words to Rolling Stone, she admitted, "I really felt like a child again." This is the psychological weight of BTS's impact. They don't just entertain, they disarm you. When an entertainment veteran like Emma Stone reverts to a state of pure, childlike wonder and excitement, it permanently destroys the outdated Western media narrative that K-pop is merely a manufactured teenage craze. Emma Stone didn't just see a boy band that night, she witnessed a masterclass in dedication, artistry, and global cultural domination. She saw 7 artists who broke through insurmountable barriers of language, race, and industry xenophobia to claim their rightful place at the top of the world. Her realization was profound: you don't have to speak Korean to feel the chemical reaction they ignite. Emma Stone's perspective shifted forever that night, turning one of Hollywood's most respected actresses into a devoted fan who openly craves front-row tickets to their next tour. But if you think an Oscar winner losing her mind during a soundcheck is wild, just wait until you hear how one of the most rugged, hyper-masculine wrestling legends in human history completely surrendered his heart to a man named J-Hope. Number 8. The Peacemaker's Confession, John Cena. When you think of the traditional, stereotypical archetype of Western hypermasculinity, the image of John Cena immediately dominates the conversation. Standing at an imposing 6 feet tall and weighing over 250 pounds of pure muscle, Cena spent nearly 2 decades as the undisputed face of world wrestling entertainment. He is a 16-time world champion, an action movie superstar, and a man whose entire global brand was meticulously built on physical dominance, ruthless aggression, and the legendary catchphrase, "You can't see me." By all conventional, outdated Western media standards, John Cena is the absolute last person on earth they would expect to be a die-hard fan of a South Korean music group. Yet, not only is Cena a proud, card-carrying member of ARMY, but he has consistently proven himself to be one of their most articulate, passionate, and fiercely loyal defenders in the entire global entertainment industry. His journey into the BTS universe is not a superficial PR stunt crafted by publicists or a casual passing interest to gain clout. It is a profound, meticulously researched respect for their artistry, their fundamental message, and their unprecedented cultural impact on a global scale. The origins of this monumental crossover began around 2018, completely by accident. Cena was scrolling through social media when a particular image caught his eye, but his natural, insatiable curiosity didn't stop at a mere visual level. He dug deeper. Cena, who actually has deep, legitimate roots in hip-hop culture and even released a platinum-selling rap album titled You Can't See Me back in 2005, started deeply analyzing their music. This is where he violently collided with the sheer force of young Hoseok, known globally to millions as J-Hope. At the time, J-Hope had just released his highly anticipated debut solo mixtape, Hope World. While casual Western listeners and lazy music critics were still stubbornly trying to box BTS into the narrow, dismissive category of bubblegum pop, Cena was discovering the heavy, relentless boom-bap beats and intricate, aggressive lyrical flows of tracks like Bassline and Hangsang. Cena's trained ear for authentic hip-hop instantly recognized the undeniable technical skill, the complex rhyme schemes, and the raw passion in J-Hope's delivery. He was utterly captivated by J-Hope's unparalleled ability to seamlessly blend overwhelming, sunshine-like charisma with lethal, razor-sharp rap proficiency. But Cena's admiration quickly evolved past J-Hope and rapidly expanded to encompass the entire septet. He began aggressively dissecting their vast discography, plunging deep into the complex narrative lore of their music videos, and most importantly, diligently reading the carefully translated lyrics of their deeply personal songs. What he found completely shattered his preconceived notions. Behind the immaculate, perfectly synchronized choreography and the record-breaking, billion-view music videos, Cena discovered a profound philosophical movement. He found 7 young men boldly addressing critical issues like mental health, crushing societal pressure, the brutal realities of the fiercely competitive South Korean education system, and the painful, absolutely necessary journey of learning to love oneself. For Cena, this was a massive psychological revelation. Throughout his own highly publicized career, transitioning from a seemingly invincible, stoic wrestler to a versatile actor learning to publicly embrace vulnerability, Cena had been quietly championing his own personal message of self-love and mental fortitude. When he saw RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, and Jungkook broadcasting this exact same essential message to millions of youth across the globe, it created an instant, unbreakable ideological bond between the American wrestler and the Korean musicians. Cena didn't just quietly add their songs to his private workout playlist, he weaponized his massive global platform to force the Western mainstream media to take them seriously. During the global press tours for massive blockbuster films like The Suicide Squad and F9, Cena continuously went out of his way to redirect the media's attention back to BTS, even when the interviewers were desperately trying to focus solely on the Hollywood machinery. His co-stars frequently noted his absolute obsession, confirming that his devotion wasn't just for the cameras, it was a genuine, everyday reality. Whenever late-night interviewers tried to gently mock or dismiss his love for BTS as a quirky, unexpected joke, Cena shut them down with surgical precision and unwavering seriousness. During a now legendary viral appearance on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, Cena delivered an absolute masterclass in explaining the BTS phenomenon to a largely uninitiated American demographic. He looked directly into the camera and passionately broke down how a group singing predominantly in a foreign language was actively saving lives, changing the world, and mobilizing a massive global army for undeniable good. He stated eloquently that he first got interested in their music, but quickly became deeply invested in what that music actually stood for. He explicitly highlighted the historic moment in the summer of 2020 when BTS donated a staggering $1 million to the Black Lives Matter movement, a massive, globally recognized statement against racial injustice. But Cena didn't stop at praising the band's unprecedented generosity, he aggressively directed his immense respect toward the fans themselves. He explained to Fallon, and the millions of viewers watching at home, how the ARMY mobilized with terrifying efficiency and matched that $1 million donation in just over 24 hours. For a veteran philanthropist like Cena, who literally holds the Guinness World Record for granting the most Make-A-Wish requests in human history, Witnessing this level of highly organized, fan-driven charity was utterly mind-blowing. It proved to him definitively that BTS was not just a pop band, they were the catalyst for a global philanthropic revolution. Furthermore, in extensive interviews with major publications like Esquire, Cena elaborated on how their message of vulnerability resonated directly with his own personal growth. Cena's vocal, unapologetic support did something completely unprecedented in modern Western pop culture. It violently dismantled the toxic, xenophobic, and heavily misogynistic stereotypes surrounding boy band fandoms. When a hyper-masculine, middle-aged Hollywood action star publicly declares his deep emotional connection to a Korean music group, it completely invalidates the lazy, sexist narrative that K-pop is only for hysterical, mindless teenage girls. Cena provided an intellectual and emotional permission slip for millions of older, male demographics to openly appreciate BTS's sheer artistry without the paralyzing fear of societal judgment. He has famously tweeted profound, philosophical quotes from group leader RM, and he frequently references the core tenets of the Love Yourself era in his own motivational books and daily social media posts. The mutual respect reached its absolute peak when BTS themselves publicly acknowledged Cena's massive support during their own high-profile interviews, leaving the usually unshakable, stoic wrestler visibly flustered and genuinely starstruck on national television. John Cena deeply recognizes the immense, crushing psychological pressure that the 7 members endure on a daily basis. Having lived under the brutal, unforgiving microscope of global fame for decades, he understands the heavy, often devastating toll it takes on a human being's soul. Yet, he constantly marvels at how BTS manages to remain incredibly humble, fiercely grounded, and relentlessly dedicated to their craft and their fans, despite operating at a level of fame and influence that arguably rivals historical titans like the Beatles or Michael Jackson. For Cena, the members of BTS are not just entertainers performing on a stage, they are global leaders, modern philosophers, and living, breathing proof that vulnerability, total authenticity, and radical empathy are the most powerful forces on Earth. He saw completely past the language barrier and connected directly with their raw humanity, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that their message transcends race, age, and any cultural background. But while John Cena found personal healing and intense ideological alignment in their deeply profound lyrics and unprecedented global philanthropy, an entirely different kind of Hollywood legend and Academy Award-winning Texan icon known for his smooth southern drawl and intensely transformative dramatic roles, found himself completely blindsided and dragged to a packed stadium by his family, only to experience an absolute masterclass in stage command and sheer physical endurance that left him completely, undeniably speechless. Number 7. The Texan Revelation, Matthew McConaughey. When you think of a stereotypical BTS fan, the global media often paints a very specific, heavily generalized picture, but the absolute truth is that their unprecedented reach penetrates demographics you would never expect, completely dominating the household of a true Texas icon. Matthew McConaughey is a bona fide Hollywood heavyweight, an Academy Award-winning actor known for his mesmerizing, critically acclaimed performances in monumental films like Dallas Buyers Club and Interstellar, and a man whose effortless southern charm and laid-back, signature persona have cemented him as a permanent, universally loved fixture in American pop culture. Yet, in September of 2018, this highly respected actor found himself miles away from the glamorous, heavily curated Hollywood red carpets, standing directly in the epicenter of a massive, deafening crowd at the Fort Worth Convention Center in Texas. He wasn't there to promote a blockbuster movie, schmooze with industry executives, or shoot a high-budget commercial. He was there because of the unrelenting, undeniable power of BTS's music, an unstoppable force that had completely taken over his family's daily life. To fully grasp the sheer magnitude of this unexpected crossover, you have to look directly at the catalyst behind it, his eldest son, Levi. Months before the historic, record-breaking Love Yourself World Tour ever reached the Lone Star State, the McConaughey household was undergoing a complete, massive cultural shift. Matthew later revealed in a highly publicized and globally circulated interview on the Ellen DeGeneres show in January 2019 that his then 10-year-old son had become absolutely captivated by the South Korean septet. This wasn't just a fleeting, casual interest in a catchy tune playing on the radio. Levi was actively walking around the house, flawlessly reciting the complex, lightning-fast Korean rap verses and meticulously memorizing every single beat of their expansive, multi-genre discography. Imagine being an Oscar-winning actor, a professional master of dialogue and script memorization, watching your young son perfectly execute intricate Korean hip-hop flows without even speaking the language natively. For Matthew, this was a massive, eye-opening testament to the sheer, magnetic power of BTS's artistry, the irrefutable fact that their music aggressively bypasses linguistic boundaries and connects on a purely human, deeply energetic level. When Levi's 10th birthday approached, there was only one thing he wanted: to see RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook perform live on stage. Being the fiercely devoted father that he is, Matthew, along with his wife Camila Alves, fully committed to the experience, rounding up a group of Levi's friends and heading straight into the vibrant, high-octane world of a massive BTS stadium show. Now, it is absolutely crucial to understand the typical, expected protocol for A-list celebrities attending massive public events. Usually, they are safely tucked away in heavily guarded, soundproof VIP skyboxes, entirely detached from the raw, visceral energy of the general admission crowd. But Matthew McConaughey completely rejected that sterile, disconnected experience. Armed with a casual t-shirt, a baseball cap, and sunglasses, he embedded himself directly into the roaring sea of glowing army bombs. Fans immediately recognized him, capturing photos and videos that instantly went viral across global social media platforms, showcasing a Hollywood legend actively participating in the precise, synchronized fan chants and soaking in the monumental scale of the live production. But the story doesn't end with him just passively sitting and watching from the sidelines like a typical chaperone. During his appearance on Ellen, Matthew detailed exactly what happened once the stadium lights went down and the undeniable, earth-shattering bass of BTS's live band kicked in. He confessed that the sheer, unadulterated energy of the 7 performers, the flawless, physically demanding choreography, and the overwhelming, contagious passion of the tens of thousands of fans in the arena made it physically impossible to just sit still. He stated, on national television, that he and his wife had a blast, completely abandoning their assigned seats to move closer to the absolute center of the action, eventually making their way right down into the pit. For a man who has witnessed the absolute pinnacle of global entertainment for decades, he proudly admitted that they literally broke a sweat dancing to the relentless, adrenaline-fueled setlist. This is the exact moment where the manufactured, outdated narrative of the Western music industry completely shatters into a million pieces. When a middle-aged, universally respected American actor is sweating in a general admission pit, dancing aggressively to a South Korean group alongside his ecstatic 10-year-old son, it forcefully proves that BTS is not a niche subculture, it is a dominant, unifying global phenomenon that commands absolute respect. Matthew witnessed firsthand a masterful, awe-inspiring display of sheer stamina, razor-sharp stage command, and genuine, unfiltered charisma that left absolutely no room for skepticism. He saw the intense sweat, the unyielding dedication, and the aggressive, lethal precision that RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook pour into every single second of their live performance. He experienced the deep, profound emotional connection that the group fosters with their massive audience, an unbreakable bond that effortlessly transcends race, age, gender, and geographical location. He watched his son experience pure, unfiltered joy, completely immersed in a culture and a language from halfway across the globe, bridged solely by the universal power of exceptional, world-class music. By openly sharing this deeply personal, heavily exhilarating family experience on one of the most watched daytime television programs in America, Matthew McConaughey provided massive, undeniable validation to millions of fans worldwide. He fundamentally normalized the reality that you do not need to understand every single Korean syllable to feel the massive, kinetic impact of a live BTS performance. His candid, authentic enthusiasm completely destroyed the invisible, often xenophobic barriers that had historically prevented Asian artists from receiving genuine, unironic respect from the highest echelons of Western pop culture royalty. He didn't just attend a concert to fulfill a parental duty, he actively participated in a massive cultural revolution, walking away with a profound, newfound respect for 7 artists who are constantly redefining the absolute limits of live entertainment. But if you thought an Academy Award-winning Texan actor sweating in the pit was the ultimate proof of their undeniable industry dominance, brace yourself, Because another massively influential Hollywood titan, a man whose entire billion-dollar entertainment empire is built on razor-sharp comedic timing and unparalleled public speaking, was about to publicly declare his unwavering allegiance and violently shut down a horde of internet trolls who dared to disrespect the global kings of modern pop. Number 6. The late-night champion, Jimmy Fallon. For decades, the fiercely competitive, high-stakes landscape of American late-night television has operated on a very strict, incredibly rigid set of unwritten rules regarding international artists, often treating foreign musicians as fleeting novelties or exotic circus acts rather than legitimate, industry-defining heavyweights. But when you examine the profound, heavily documented relationship between the South Korean septet and the indisputable king of modern NBC late-night programming, Jimmy Fallon, you witness the absolute, systematic destruction of that xenophobic broadcasting paradigm. Jimmy Fallon is not just a casual television host, he is a multi-talented comedian, a seasoned producer, and the driving force behind a multi-million-dollar entertainment empire built on razor-sharp comedic timing, unparalleled celebrity access, and an acute understanding of global pop culture metrics. When BTS first walked onto the heavily guarded, historically significant set of The Tonight Show in September of 2018, the massive, often deeply cynical Western media apparatus fully expected a standard, heavily scripted, 5-minute promotional interview filled with predictable, borderline condescending questions about language barriers and rabid teenage fans. Instead, what unfolded on national television was a masterclass in genuine, unfiltered cross-cultural chemistry that instantly silenced the loud, obnoxious horde of internet trolls and skeptical industry purists who constantly accused American hosts of merely exploiting BTS for cheap, viral viewership. Fallon didn't just interview RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, and Jungkook, he fully surrendered his massive platform to them, treating them with the exact same immense, unwavering reverence usually strictly reserved for legacy Western icons like Paul McCartney or Bruce Springsteen. The undeniable catalyst for this powerful, deeply authentic bond was the immediate, lightning-in-a-bottle connection between Fallon and Jimin. When Fallon boldly wore a headband featuring Jimin's massively popular BT21 character, it wasn't a calculated, cynical public relations maneuver orchestrated by network executives, it was a genuine, heavily researched display of respect for their expansive, multi-layered intellectual property. This singular, seemingly simple act of donning a plush headband violently dismantled the invisible wall of defensive professionalism, instantly putting the members at ease and allowing their lethal, captivating charisma to completely flood the American airwaves. But Fallon's dedication did not stop at surface-level pleasantries or quick, easily digestible viral dance challenges. He fundamentally recognized that BTS was not a passing trend, but a monumental, historic paradigm shift in global music consumption, and he was determined to give them a stage that accurately reflected their unprecedented, record-breaking magnitude. This unwavering commitment reached its absolute, jaw-dropping zenith in February of 2020, executing a logistical television miracle that left veteran Hollywood producers completely speechless. Fallon and his massive, highly experienced production team accomplished the near impossible. They completely shut down Grand Central Terminal, one of the busiest, most heavily trafficked, and heavily secured transit hubs on the planet, situated right in the beating heart of New York City, exclusively for a massive, high-octane performance of the kinetic, fiercely aggressive lead single On. Let the sheer, monumental gravity of that fact truly sink in. The city of New York literally halted its relentless, chaotic momentum, closing down a massive, historic architectural landmark just so 7 young men from South Korea could deliver a brutal, flawlessly synchronized masterpiece backed by a massive marching band and an army of backup dancers. This was not just a late-night television segment, it was a massive, undeniable coronation. Fallon essentially handed them the keys to the greatest city in the world, aggressively broadcasting to millions of American households that BTS was operating on a scale so massive, so incredibly dominant, that standard studio stages were no longer sufficient to contain their explosive power. The sheer technical precision, the grueling physical stamina required for the choreography, and the flawless live vocals completely eradicated any remaining, stubborn whispers of doubt regarding their raw, undeniable talent. And yet, incredibly, Fallon's unprecedented championing of the group only escalated. In an absolute broadcasting first, he dedicated an entire, uninterrupted week of The Tonight Show programming solely to BTS in late 2020. BTS Week was a massive, historical television event featuring 5 consecutive nights of unique, high-budget performances, deeply revealing interviews, and massive comedic segments that completely dominated global social media algorithms and consistently shattered network ratings. By dedicating premium, immensely expensive television real estate to a singular Korean group for an entire week, Fallon forcefully legitimized their absolute dominance in the eyes of the stubborn, historically exclusionary Western music industry. He proved, with hard, undeniable statistical evidence and massive viewership numbers, that BTS was the most powerful, most lucrative, and most universally beloved musical act on the planet. During this unprecedented BTS week, Fallon's production team seamlessly collaborated with the group's Korean management to broadcast visually staggering, high-definition performances filmed across various breathtaking, historically significant landmarks in South Korea. When millions of Americans tuned in and witnessed BTS fiercely performing their aggressive, traditionally infused hip-hop track Idol while wearing heavily modified, stunningly beautiful modern hanboks directly in front of the legendary, culturally sacred Junjeongjin Hall of Gyeongbokgung Palace in Seoul, it was a massive, unapologetic display of Korean cultural supremacy broadcast directly onto mainstream American television. Fallon actively facilitated this massive cultural exchange, proving that foreign artists do not have to dilute their profound national heritage or aggressively assimilate into Western pop standards to achieve absolute, undeniable superstardom in the United States. He showcased their incredible duality, seamlessly transitioning from the haunting, deeply theatrical contemporary dance of Black Swan to the vibrant, universally uplifting disco pop explosion of Dynamite on a retro roller rink set, completely destroying the narrow, extremely restrictive parameters usually forced upon traditional boy bands. Furthermore, during the historic subway episode, where Fallon rented out an entire New York City subway car to conduct a massive, deeply personal, and highly chaotic interview as they traveled underneath the bustling streets of Manhattan, the raw, unfiltered camaraderie was instantly palpable. This unprecedented setup completely shattered the sterile, highly controlled environment of traditional celebrity press junkets, allowing the members to showcase their quick wit, their deep, brotherly bond, and their fundamental, highly relatable humanity. When BTS faced the massive, highly controversial, and deeply frustrating snubs from the notoriously conservative Recording Academy during the Grammy Awards, Fallon was one of the very first, most prominent mainstream American voices to publicly express genuine disappointment and fiercely reiterate that they did not need a golden gramophone to validate their undisputed status as the absolute biggest band in the world. He weaponized his immense credibility to aggressively challenge the deeply entrenched, systemic biases of the Western music establishment. This relentless, highly public validation from a beloved, deeply entrenched industry insider provided immense comfort and absolute vindication to millions of fiercely protective fans. Fallon deeply understands that being a BTS fan is not a mindless, superficial obsession, but a deeply empowering, globally unifying experience. His unyielding, highly vocal support completely normalizes the massive, intense passion of their global fanbase, effectively telling millions of older, traditional television viewers that it is perfectly acceptable to be absolutely mesmerized by artists who don't necessarily speak your native language. When an established, highly respected American television titan stakes his entire, massive professional reputation on championing a South Korean group, constantly promoting their solo projects even while they fulfill their mandatory military service, it absolutely transcends the boundaries of basic television promotion and becomes a profound, historic display of authentic, cross-cultural brotherhood. Jimmy Fallon did not just give BTS a temporary spotlight on his prestigious show, he permanently altered the entire landscape of American television to rightfully accommodate their massive, undeniable global reign. But while Fallon utilized the massive, heavily structured machinery of late-night network television to violently forcefully project their sheer brilliance to the American masses, another beloved, highly acclaimed Hollywood actor, a man globally recognized for his intense, blockbuster cinematic roles and a deeply moving, fiercely intelligent approach to his craft, was about to accidentally stumble right into the very heart of the ARMY fandom, discovering a profound, deeply personal emotional resonance in the raw, deeply vulnerable lyrics of one specific member, completely changing his perspective on what modern pop music could truly achieve. Number 5. The British Intellectual's Awakening, Simon Pegg. When examining the absolute highest echelons of British acting royalty in modern blockbuster cinema, Simon Pegg occupies a uniquely prestigious and fiercely intellectual space. Globally renowned for his razor-sharp comedic timing, brilliant screenwriting in the legendary Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, and his massive, high-octane roles as Benji Dunn in the multi-billion-dollar Mission Impossible franchise and the iconic Montgomery Scott in the modern Star Trek cinematic universe, Pegg is fundamentally known as a man who deeply, meticulously understands the intricate mechanics of storytelling and pop culture. He is not someone who is easily swayed by superficial trends or manufactured corporate hype. His entire career is built on a massive foundation of critical thinking and authentic, unapologetic geek culture. Therefore, when this highly acclaimed, fiercely intelligent 50-something British actor publicly declared himself a devoted, card-carrying member of ARMY, it sent a massive, undeniable shockwave through the Western entertainment industry, completely destroying the deeply ingrained, aggressively dismissive narrative that BTS's music only appeals to a heavily generalized teenage demographic. The genesis of this monumental cultural crossover did not begin in a high-profile Hollywood boardroom or a lavish VIP after-party, but rather in the quiet, deeply personal environment of his own family home, catalyzed entirely by his teenage daughter, Tilly. Like many parents across the globe, Pegg was initially introduced to the relentless, gravity-defying universe of South Korean pop music through his child. However, instead of exhibiting the typical, patronizing dismissal that many older generations instinctively weaponize against modern youth culture, Pegg's inherent, deeply ingrained analytical curiosity violently kicked into high gear. He didn't just passively listen to the infectious, stadium-shaking melodies playing in the background of his house, he actively started dissecting the architecture of their music, aggressively diving into the meticulously translated lyrics, and exploring the expansive, deeply interconnected narrative lore that the septet had been diligently building for years. What this seasoned Hollywood screenwriter discovered completely shattered his preconceived notions of what a modern global pop group was truly capable of achieving. Pegg, a man who has spent decades exploring the complex nuances of human emotion and societal pressure through his own critically acclaimed scripts, was utterly blindsided by the raw, uncompromising vulnerability aggressively woven into the DNA of BTS's discography. He found himself deeply, profoundly resonating with the fierce, unapologetic truth completely dominating the solo work of Min Youngi, globally known as Suga, and his ferocious hip-hop alter ego, August D. While the stubborn, historically xenophobic Western media was still desperately trying to box the group into a sterile, manufactured boy band stereotype, Pegg was actively listening to Suga rap with lethal, razor-sharp precision about his grueling, terrifying battles with severe depression, crippling social anxiety, and the suffocating, crushing weight of unprecedented global fame. Pegg famously took to his massive Instagram platform to publicly broadcast his absolute awe, heavily praising the cinematic, brutally visceral masterpiece that is the Daechwita music video, even going so far as to humorously yet deeply respectfully recreate Suga's intense, commanding poses for his millions of followers. Furthermore, he proudly displayed a life-sized cardboard cutout of Jin in his home, seamlessly integrating his immense respect for the group's eldest member into his daily life and public broadcasts. This wasn't a fleeting, superficial endorsement to score cheap internet points. This was a highly respected cinematic veteran publicly bowing down to the undeniable, world-class artistic vision of South Korean musicians. Pegg recognized that Suga wasn't just producing catchy beats, he was actively utilizing his massive global platform to aggressively destigmatize mental health discussions, forcefully tearing down the deeply toxic, historically entrenched barriers of traditional masculinity that demand silent suffering. For a British actor who has also been bravely, radically open about his own deeply personal, harrowing struggles with alcoholism and severe depression, hearing a young Korean artist articulate that exact same darkness with such terrifying, beautiful clarity created an instant, unbreakable ideological bond. But Pegg's massive respect and unwavering dedication rapidly expanded to encompass the entire septet, specifically highlighting the immense, crushing pressure placed upon Kim Namjoon, the group's fiercely intelligent leader. Pegg frequently utilized his live broadcasts to aggressively educate his older, predominantly Western fanbase about the sheer, unparalleled magnitude of RM's diplomatic and artistic responsibilities, constantly marveling at how a man in his 20s could so flawlessly navigate the brutal, unforgiving crosshairs of international politics, United Nations assemblies, and the highest levels of the global music industry without ever losing his fundamental, grounded humanity. Pegg's public advocacy completely weaponized his immense, undeniable geek credibility to forcefully legitimize BTS in the eyes of stubborn, older male demographics who had previously refused to give them a chance. He aggressively called out the lazy, deeply xenophobic journalism that consistently attempted to minimize the group's historic achievements, fiercely defending their absolute right to sit at the absolute pinnacle of the global music hierarchy. This profound, deeply authentic journey culminated in a massive, highly emotional crescendo in April of 2022, when Pegg and his family flew directly into the neon-soaked epicenter of Las Vegas to attend the historic, massively scaled permission to dance on stage residency at the sprawling Allegiant Stadium. Pegg wasn't just a casual celebrity spectator hiding in a heavily fortified VIP suite, he was fully immersed in the massive, kinetic energy of the crowd, actively documenting his genuine, unfiltered excitement as he prepared to witness the absolute kings of modern live performance. The backstage photographs of Pegg standing alongside RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, and Jungkook instantly went viral, permanently immortalizing a beautiful, deeply symbolic collision of massive British cinematic royalty and undisputed South Korean musical supremacy. In those moments, Pegg didn't act like an untouchable Hollywood elite, he behaved like a genuine, deeply humbled fan who had finally met the artists whose profoundly vulnerable lyrics had provided him and his family with immense, undeniable joy and deep philosophical comfort during the darkest, most isolating days of the global pandemic. By openly, proudly declaring his unwavering allegiance to the septet, Simon Pegg systematically destroyed the invisible, highly toxic societal rulebook that dictates what art-specific demographics are allowed to enjoy. He proved with absolute, unshakable certainty that true, world-class artistry operates completely outside the restrictive boundaries of language, age, and geographical borders, proving that the raw, bleeding human heart beats exactly the same in London, Hollywood, and Seoul. He recognized that BTS is not just a band, but a fundamental, aggressively positive force for global change, a massive sociological phenomenon that is actively healing millions of people simply by speaking their absolute, unvarnished truth. But while Simon Pegg found deep, profound psychological alignment in their aggressive honesty and mental health advocacy, another globally recognized, fiercely beloved Hollywood legend, a woman whose entire legendary career is built on unparalleled comedic brilliance, massive philanthropic efforts, and breaking down historic television barriers, was about to publicly declare her absolute, uncompromising obsession with the septet, completely transforming her massive daytime television empire into an unapologetic, fiercely protective fortress for the ARMY. Number 4. The daytime pioneer, Ellen DeGeneres. When mapping out the complex, historically rigid hierarchy of American daytime television, there is absolutely no denying the monumental, industry-defining impact of Ellen DeGeneres. For nearly 2 decades, she commanded a massive, multi-million-dollar daytime empire built upon a meticulously crafted foundation of unparalleled comedic brilliance, highly publicized philanthropic endeavors, and an unprecedented ability to dictate the cultural conversations happening in living rooms across the United States. She is a historic trailblazer who aggressively shattered massive television barriers in the late 1990s, completely rewiring the conservative landscape of network broadcasting. Therefore, when this deeply influential, pioneering television icon fully opened the highly coveted, intensely guarded doors of her Warner Brothers studio to a relatively unknown South Korean septet in November of 2017, it fundamentally altered the trajectory of modern pop music history. At that specific time, the notoriously stubborn, heavily gate-kept Western media industry still largely viewed the entire genre of K-pop as a bizarre, heavily manufactured internet subculture, completely unworthy of serious, mainstream critical analysis. But Ellen, possessing razor-sharp producer instincts and a deep, intuitive understanding of shifting cultural tides, completely rejected that lazy, xenophobic narrative. She aggressively secured BTS for their very first, highly anticipated live television debut on an American daytime talk show, fully recognizing that she was about to unleash a massive, undeniable global phenomenon onto an entirely uninitiated demographic of American housewives, casual viewers, and established industry executives. What happened next was an absolute masterclass in television production and cross-cultural normalization. When RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook finally walked onto her iconic stage, Ellen didn't treat them like a fleeting, exotic novelty act. She treated them with the exact same massive, unyielding respect usually reserved for established, legacy American superstars. During her highly publicized introductory monologue, she looked directly into the camera and explicitly, forcefully compared the rabid, absolute pandemonium of their arrival at the Los Angeles International Airport directly to the legendary, historic arrival of the Beatles in 1964. This was not just a throwaway, sensationalized soundbite designed to generate cheap, temporary viral engagement, it was a massive, highly calculated declaration from a trusted American cultural authority heavily instructing her massive, predominantly older audience to immediately take these 7 young men seriously. Ellen understood that the primary barrier preventing older Western demographics from fully embracing BTS was the deeply entrenched fear of the unknown, specifically the formidable language barrier. To systematically dismantle this, she masterfully orchestrated a deeply engaging, heavily viral interview segment that immediately highlighted the group's undeniable charm and relatable humanity. When she asked RM, the group's fiercely intelligent leader, exactly how he learned to speak English with such flawless, native-level fluency, he revealed that he had meticulously taught himself by religiously watching DVDs of the classic American sitcom Friends. In that singular, brilliant television moment, Ellen effortlessly bridged a massive, 10,000-mile cultural divide. By connecting the South Korean rapper directly to one of the most beloved, universally recognized staples of American pop culture, she instantly transformed them from foreign superstars into highly relatable, deeply endearing young men in the eyes of millions of American mothers and grandmothers. But Ellen's massive contribution to their aggressive Western domination did not stop at simply facilitating a charming, highly effective conversational icebreaker. She fully understood that to truly cement their absolute legitimacy, she had to provide them with an uncompromised, high-octane platform to showcase their lethal, world-class artistry. She handed over her stage for an explosive, heavily stylized live performance of the Mic Drop remix. For the millions of daytime viewers who were heavily accustomed to seeing safe, sanitized acoustic performances or lighthearted cooking segments, witnessing 7 men execute brutally precise, fiercely aggressive, hip-hop heavy choreography with absolute, unyielding perfection was a massive, lethal wake-up call. They completely devoured the television screen, showcasing a level of unmatched physical stamina and razor-sharp stage command that the American daytime circuit had simply never witnessed before. The raw, visceral energy vibrating through the studio was so undeniably infectious that Ellen immediately locked them in as recurring, highly prized guests, inviting them back to completely dominate her stage again in 2018 for the highly anticipated premiere of Fake Love. During these subsequent, highly rated appearances, Ellen seamlessly transitioned from a formal, heavily structured interviewer into a genuine, highly affectionate champion of the group, constantly utilizing her massive platform to forcefully advocate for their undisputed global supremacy. She brilliantly showcased their duality, proving that underneath the intimidating, flawlessly executed stage personas, they were incredibly humble, deeply hilarious young men. This was immortalized during one of her legendary, highly anticipated scare pranks, where a massive, dedicated fan unexpectedly jumped out of a prop box located directly next to the members during their interview. The resulting footage, capturing J-Hope's terrified, highly exaggerated physical reaction and Jin's absolute, unfiltered shock, instantly broke the internet, generating tens of millions of views across global social media platforms and aggressively proving that BTS possessed a raw, highly engaging comedic timing that perfectly aligned with Western late-night sensibilities. By actively encouraging this unscripted, chaotic joy, Ellen completely destroyed the outdated, deeply racist stereotype of the robotic, heavily manufactured Asian pop idol, forcefully presenting them to the American public as fully realized, deeply authentic human beings who could effortlessly command a room with their natural charisma. Furthermore, Ellen actively weaponized her immense, deeply loyal audience to forcefully legitimize the massive, often misunderstood power of the ARMY fandom. She frequently invited legions of their most dedicated, highly organized fans into her studio, ensuring the live broadcasts were packed with deafening, highly synchronized fan chants that completely overwhelmed the studio audio. She completely shifted the mainstream narrative away from the toxic, misogynistic framing of hysterical, mindless teenagers and instead aggressively highlighted their immense passion, unmatched organizational skills, and deep, profound emotional connection to the septet's meticulously crafted music. By doing so, she transformed her massive, multi-million-dollar daytime television empire into an unapologetic, fiercely protective fortress for the group, effectively telling the stubborn, historically exclusionary Western music establishment that the Korean wave was not just temporarily visiting America, it had permanently, forcefully taken up residence at the absolute top of the industry. Ellen DeGeneres essentially acted as the ultimate, highly trusted cultural translator, utilizing her unprecedented mainstream influence to forcefully pry open the heavily guarded doors of American pop culture, ensuring that RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, and Jungkook could confidently walk through and rightfully claim their massive, historic global throne without ever having to dilute their authentic Korean identities. But while Ellen utilized the massive, heavily structured machinery of daytime network television to completely normalize their immense presence in the American mainstream, an entirely different kind of Hollywood legend, a critically acclaimed, universally beloved British actress globally recognized for her breathtaking, heavily transformative role in the biggest television fantasy franchise in human history, was about to publicly reveal a deeply profound, unexpected emotional connection to the group's golden youngest member, completely shattering the illusion that classically trained, prestigious actors are entirely immune to the raw, visceral power of modern South Korean pop. Number 3. The Westerosi assassin, Maisie Williams. When you examine the absolute pinnacle of modern television history, there is one singular, monumental HBO fantasy epic that completely dominated the global cultural zeitgeist for nearly a decade, fundamentally rewriting the rules of cinematic broadcasting and elevating its young cast to unprecedented, astronomical levels of international fame. At the very center of this massive, blood-soaked, heavily politicized fictional universe was Arya Stark, a fiercely independent, highly lethal assassin portrayed with breathtaking, terrifying precision by the critically acclaimed British actress, Maisie Williams. For 8 grueling seasons, Williams embodied the absolute essence of grim, unapologetic survival, navigating a brutally dark, unforgiving narrative landscape that captivated hundreds of millions of concurrent viewers worldwide and earned her massive, undeniable critical prestige, including multiple highly coveted Emmy Award nominations. Given the incredibly dark, heavy, and intensely serious nature of her defining, career-making role, the deeply entrenched, notoriously cynical Western entertainment media absolutely never expected this specific classically trained, highly prestigious British actress to publicly align herself with the vibrant, deeply empathetic, and highly kinetic world of South Korean pop music. Yet, in August of 2018, Maisie Williams completely shattered the internet and violently disrupted the heavily gate-kept boundaries of Hollywood prestige by officially, unashamedly declaring her absolute, unwavering allegiance to BTS, instantly becoming one of the most prominent, fiercely vocal, and highly visible celebrity members of the global ARMY fandom. The massive, undeniable catalyst for this historic pop culture crossover occurred on the notoriously chaotic, highly scrutinized platform of Twitter, when a curious fan directly asked the actress if she listened to the record-breaking septet that was rapidly conquering the Western music market. In a move that completely bypassed the usual, heavily sanitized, tightly controlled celebrity public relations playbook crafted by nervous managers, Williams immediately responded with a massive, undeniable declaration, simply stating, "Yes, I stand BTS for life." This wasn't a heavily calculated, heavily negotiated corporate brand endorsement designed to artificially boost her social media metrics. It was a raw, deeply authentic, and highly spontaneous confession from a globally recognized superstar who had been quietly, deeply mesmerized by the sheer, undeniable artistry emanating from Seoul. But the absolute, undeniable epicenter of her intense fascination was entirely focused on the group's fiercely talented, exceptionally versatile golden youngest member, Jungkook. When pressed by another fan to reveal her absolute ultimate bias, Williams didn't hesitate for a single microscopic second, boldly declaring, "Jungkook babes," accompanied by a string of affectionate, universally understood emojis that instantly sent the massive, highly organized global fandom into an absolute, unprecedented frenzy of digital celebration. To fully understand the profound, deeply resonant impact of this specific celebrity endorsement, you have to aggressively analyze the massive, undeniable psychological parallels between Williams' own demanding, high-stakes profession and the brutal, unforgiving reality of Jungkook's world-class artistry. Williams is an actress who spent her entire formative teenage years enduring highly intense, physically grueling combat training, meticulously memorizing highly complex, lethal fight choreography, and consistently delivering deeply emotional, highly demanding performances under the crushing, uncompromising microscope of a multi-million-dollar HBO production. When she watches Jungkook completely devour a massive stadium stage, she isn't just passively listening to a catchy pop melody designed for temporary radio play, she is actively witnessing a fellow, highly disciplined prodigy execute brutal, physically demanding choreography with razor-sharp, lethal precision while simultaneously delivering flawless, incredibly stable live vocals under immense pressure. She deeply recognizes the absolute, unyielding dedication, the countless hours of exhausting, bone-breaking rehearsal in closed-door dance studios, and the massive, undeniable physical stamina required to perform at that unprecedented, world-class level night after night on a global tour. She sees the raw, bleeding passion that Jungkook pours into every single, microscopic movement, and as a highly trained, elite performer herself, she fundamentally respects that immense, undeniable sacrifice that goes largely unnoticed by casual viewers. Furthermore, Williams actively utilized her massive, globally influential platform to forcefully normalize the massive, often heavily stigmatized culture of intense celebrity fandom that older generations consistently attempt to mock. Following her explosive Twitter revelations, she actively participated in the massively viral Idol Dance Challenge on social media, proudly showcasing her genuine, deeply unfiltered joy as she attempted the group's highly intricate, culturally infused choreography. She absolutely did not care about maintaining a heavily guarded, fiercely untouchable, stoic Hollywood persona. She completely surrendered to the massive, undeniable happiness and radical positivity that BTS's aggressively uplifting music provides in a highly cynical world. By publicly, unashamedly fangirling over Jungkook and the entire septet, she systematically destroyed the lazy, deeply misogynistic Western media narrative that attempts to ruthlessly invalidate the sophisticated musical taste of young women. When a critically acclaimed, Emmy-nominated actress who famously portrayed one of the most ruthless, heavily respected, and terrifyingly competent characters in modern television history proudly declares her absolute obsession with a South Korean pop group, it forcefully demands that the stubborn, historically exclusionary music industry take immediate notice and afford these artists the massive, undeniable respect they rightfully deserve on a global scale. Williams fundamentally proved to her millions of followers that you can be a highly respected, deeply serious artist working in the absolute highest echelons of British and American prestige television, while simultaneously finding profound, deeply healing comfort in the massively vibrant, aggressively optimistic sonic universe meticulously crafted by RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook. Her vocal, fiercely protective support provided massive, undeniable validation to millions of fans across the globe, effectively building a massive, highly visible structural bridge between the fiercely guarded realm of prestige Hollywood storytelling and the unstoppable, highly kinetic force of the Hallyu wave. She backed up her digital support by physically attending their massive, highly anticipated sold-out concerts at the legendary O2 Arena in London, completely embedding herself directly into the massive, deafening sea of glowing army bombs, experiencing the raw, visceral, earth-shattering energy of their live band and completely immersing herself in the deeply unifying, aggressively welcoming culture of the massive global fandom. In doing so, Maisie Williams didn't just casually endorse a popular band, she actively joined a massive, historically significant global movement fundamentally dedicated to radical self-love, profound artistic excellence, and the absolute, systematic destruction of deeply entrenched linguistic and cultural barriers. But if you thought a highly decorated HBO fantasy assassin bowing down to the sheer talent of the Golden Magne was the absolute peak of unexpected industry validation, brace yourself, because another massively influential, universally respected American music legend, a man who essentially built the entire vocal foundation of 1990s R&B and possesses one of the most technically flawless, heavily awarded voices in human history, was about to publicly declare his absolute, unyielding awe for the angelic, gravity-defying high notes of another specific member, proving unequivocally that true, world-class vocal royalty instantly recognizes its own magnificent reflection. Number 2. The R&B royalty, Jimin. When establishing the absolute, undisputed foundational pillars of modern Western rhythm and blues, the conversation instantly and inevitably begins and ends with the legendary, multi-platinum vocal powerhouse group, Boyz II Men. Throughout the massively influential 1990s, this incredibly prestigious group completely revolutionized the global music industry, defining an entire era with their flawless, intricately woven four-part harmonies, devastatingly emotional ballads, and a level of pure, unadulterated technical vocal mastery that earned them 4 highly coveted Grammy Awards and an unprecedented, record-breaking residency at the absolute top of the Billboard Hot 100 charts. Within this historic, industry-defining collective stands Shawn Stockman, a man widely revered by music critics and fellow artists alike as true, undisputed vocal royalty, possessing an incredibly rare, highly trained ear for pitch-perfect execution and emotional resonance. Therefore, when this deeply respected, classically trained American R&B pioneer took to his massive social media platforms to publicly declare his absolute, unyielding awe for a South Korean pop vocalist, it completely shattered the heavily gate-kept, notoriously arrogant illusions of the traditional Western music establishment. The undeniable, intensely magnetic catalyst for this massive cross-cultural endorsement was entirely focused on the breathtaking, highly ethereal vocal prowess of BTS's lead vocalist and main dancer, Park Jimin. The massive, historically significant collision of these two vocal worlds occurred when Shawn Stockman accidentally stumbled upon Jimin's critically acclaimed, heavily revered solo track, Serendipity. For a veteran artist who has literally spent decades inside high-end, multi-million-dollar recording studios meticulously dissecting the microscopic nuances of vocal tone, breath control, and emotional delivery, Stockman was instantly, violently stopped in his tracks. He didn't just passively stream the song on a casual playlist while going about his daily routine, he was so deeply, fundamentally moved by the sheer, undeniable beauty of Jimin's unique vocal timbre that he actively picked up an acoustic guitar and meticulously filmed himself performing a breathtaking, highly emotional cover of the intensely difficult track, singing entirely in the original Korean language. Let the sheer, monumental gravity of that action completely sink into your mind right now. An established, historically significant American music legend, who essentially co-wrote the blueprint for modern vocal harmonizing, sat down and painstakingly learned the precise Korean pronunciation and complex melodic structure of a modern K-pop song simply because he deeply, profoundly respected the undeniable artistry of the original singer. When Stockman uploaded this historic, intensely beautiful acoustic cover to the internet, it instantly triggered a massive, deafening global shockwave, generating millions of views and completely dominating music news cycles across the entire planet. But Stockman's massive, highly vocal support absolutely did not stop at a mere viral tribute video posted on a whim. During subsequent, highly publicized interviews and live social media broadcasts, he essentially delivered an absolute masterclass in technical vocal analysis, explicitly breaking down exactly why Jimin's voice is an incredibly rare, world-class instrument that demands global reverence. He aggressively praised Jimin's unparalleled ability to seamlessly, effortlessly transition from a rich, deeply grounded mid-range directly into a soaring, beautifully delicate falsetto without losing a single microscopic ounce of raw emotional power or pitch accuracy. Stockman forcefully pointed out that Jimin doesn't just sing the notes passively printed on a page, he actively weaponizes his voice to paint a massive, highly vivid emotional landscape, utilizing a devastatingly beautiful, airy texture that instantly paralyzes the listener and evokes a profound sense of yearning. For a seasoned R&B veteran to publicly, unashamedly admit that a young South Korean pop idol possessed a vocal tone so mesmerizing that it actively inspired him to sit down and create music again, it systematically, violently destroyed the lazy, deeply racist narrative perpetuated by stubborn Western media outlets that falsely claimed K-pop artists are simply heavily manufactured, heavily auto-tuned visual products completely lacking in genuine, raw musical talent. Stockman actively utilized his massive, undeniable industry credibility to aggressively validate Jimin's immense, world-class standing, forcefully telling the stubbornly exclusionary American music industry that true, unparalleled vocal greatness is completely blind to race, language, and geographic borders. He fully recognized that the intense, crushing discipline required to execute the devastatingly intricate choreography of BTS while simultaneously delivering incredibly stable, highly complex vocal runs is an absolute, undeniable feat of human endurance that completely rivals, and often surpasses, the absolute greatest performers in Western music history. Furthermore, Stockman actively sought out opportunities to deepen this massive, culturally significant bond, heavily expressing his intense, genuine desire to actively collaborate with Jimin in the recording studio, completely treating him not as a subordinate foreign artist desperately seeking Western validation, but as an absolute, undisputed equal operating at the absolute highest possible echelon of the global music industry. When BTS later attended a massive, highly exclusive awards ceremony in the United States, Stockman famously went completely out of his way to formally meet the septet backstage, completely bypassing the superficial celebrity networking protocols to capture a historic, deeply symbolic photograph that permanently immortalized the massive, undeniable bridge connecting the legendary golden age of 90s American R&B directly to the unstoppable, highly kinetic force of the modern South Korean Hallyu wave. By actively, fiercely championing Jimin's undeniable vocal brilliance, Shawn Stockman completely broke down massive, heavily entrenched racial and linguistic barriers that have historically marginalized Asian artists in the West, providing immense, undeniable validation to millions of passionate ARMYs worldwide who had always recognized the sheer, world-class magnitude of Jimin's artistry. He proved with absolute, unshakable certainty that when you completely strip away the massive, highly coordinated global marketing campaigns, the explosive, high-budget music videos, and the deafening roar of packed, sold-out stadium crowds, what truly remains at the absolute core of BTS's exceptional, deeply authentic, and technically flawless musicality that universally commands the absolute highest level of respect from true, undisputed industry titans. But if you thought an iconic, multi-platinum R&B legend covering a Korean solo track with his acoustic guitar was the absolute ultimate peak of Hollywood validation, you need to firmly brace yourself for an absolute, unprecedented global meltdown, because our final, most shocking entry features one of the most bankable, universally desired, and critically acclaimed leading men in modern cinematic history, an Academy Award-nominated blockbuster superstar who literally broke the internet by publicly gifting his most iconic, heavily utilized cinematic movie prop directly to one specific BTS member, officially bending the knee and handing over his legacy to the absolute kings of global pop culture. Number 1. The blockbuster tribute, Ryan Gosling. When you aggressively analyze the absolute zenith of modern Hollywood royalty, you inevitably violently collide with the massive, unshakable cinematic titan that is Ryan Gosling. For well over 2 decades, Gosling has meticulously cultivated one of the most respected, critically acclaimed, and fiercely protected careers in the entire global entertainment industry, transitioning seamlessly from a critically praised child actor in the legendary Mickey Mouse Club to a massive, universally desired romantic lead in The Notebook, and eventually evolving into a heavily decorated, Academy Award-nominated powerhouse delivering breathtaking, deeply complex performances in monumental masterpieces like Drive, Blade Runner 2049, and the historically significant cinematic triumph, La La Land. He is not a desperate, clout-chasing influencer, he is a bona fide, undisputed A-list heavyweight who completely dictates the highest echelons of the Western cinematic landscape. Therefore, when this massive, universally revered blockbuster superstar intentionally, highly publicly shattered the internet by actively bending the knee and pledging absolute, undeniable stylistic allegiance to the unstoppable, record-breaking force of South Korean pop royalty, it systematically destroyed any remaining, stubbornly xenophobic illusions regarding who truly controls the global cultural zeitgeist. The undeniable, massive epicenter of this historic pop culture earthquake occurred during the relentlessly chaotic, multi-billion-dollar global press tour for Greta Gerwig's massive, world-conquering cinematic phenomenon, Barbie. Throughout the summer of 2023, the entire planet was completely held hostage by the inescapable, neon-pink Barbenheimer cultural massive event, fundamentally rewriting modern box office history. At the absolute beating heart of this massive cinematic triumph was Gosling's deeply layered, highly viral, and critically dominant portrayal of Ken, a performance so incredibly nuanced and aggressively entertaining that it eventually commanded the legendary Academy Awards stage. Yet, right in the middle of this unprecedented, suffocating global media frenzy, Gosling completely bypassed the sterile, highly scripted corporate press junkets to explicitly, intentionally address a massive, undeniable stylistic collision with BTS. The massive, highly documented catalyst for this historic interaction was a very specific, fiercely striking piece of high-end fashion, a stark black Western cowboy shirt aggressively adorned with intricate, contrasting white floral embroidery and heavy, dramatic white fringe. Gosling prominently wore this exact, highly customized garment during some of his most pivotal, aggressively scene-stealing cinematic moments as Ken. However, the notoriously sharp, highly observant, and massively organized global ARMY fandom instantly recognized that this specific piece of high fashion had already conquered the world stage 2 years prior. In July of 2021, during the height of the devastating global pandemic, BTS released their massively uplifting, record-breaking English single Permission to Dance, a deeply healing, aggressively optimistic anthem that completely dominated the Billboard Hot 100 charts. In that highly celebrated, historically significant music video, Jimin flawlessly executed the group's brutally precise, highly demanding choreography while absolutely commanding that exact same heavily fringed Western outfit. Fully aware of this massive, undeniable cross-cultural overlap, Gosling did not instruct his massive team of Hollywood publicists to quietly ignore the internet chatter. Instead, he actively weaponized the official, highly followed Barbie movie social media accounts to broadcast a massive, historically unprecedented video message aimed directly, specifically at Jimin. In this meticulously crafted, massively viral broadcast, Gosling completely stripped away his massive Hollywood ego. Looking directly into the camera lens, utilizing his signature, highly effective deadpan comedic delivery, he actively invoked the highly respected, unspoken rules of the Ken Code. With absolute, unvarnished sincerity, this multi-million-dollar leading man publicly confessed massive defeat, explicitly stating to the entire world that Jimin had absolutely worn the iconic Western outfit first, and significantly more importantly, he aggressively admitted that Jimin had worn it exponentially better. But Gosling absolutely did not stop at a simple, highly charming verbal concession. He actively escalated this historic interaction into a massive, globally recognized exchange of highly coveted cultural artifacts. Citing the sacred, undeniable cinematic rule that if you successfully bite another Ken's style, you are fundamentally obligated to give them your most prized personal possession, Gosling publicly, formally offered Jimin the absolute undeniable crown jewel of his character's massive cinematic arsenal, Ken's actual, heavily customized acoustic guitar. This was not a cheap, hastily manufactured piece of promotional plastic designed for a quick press photo. This was the genuine, historically significant movie prop heavily utilized throughout the billion-dollar film, specifically during the massively viral, highly emotional musical sequences that completely dominated global streaming platforms. By voluntarily, highly publicly handing over this massively coveted piece of Hollywood history, Gosling was essentially, undeniably bending the knee to the absolute, undisputed cultural supremacy of BTS. Let the immense, historically significant gravity of this interaction completely wash over you and violently shatter your preconceived notions of Western entertainment dominance. We are analyzing a scenario where one of the most bankable, universally respected, and highly decorated A-list actors in modern cinematic history actively sought direct validation from a South Korean pop star during the absolute peak promotional window of the highest-grossing film of the entire year. This single, massively viral action completely obliterated the historically arrogant, heavily gate-kept dynamic where international artists were desperately, unfairly expected to relentlessly seek the highly coveted approval of Western media elites. Gosling violently, unapologetically flipped the script, proving with absolute, undeniable certainty that true, massive global influence currently emanates directly, forcefully from Seoul. The global internet absolutely, completely shattered. The video accumulated tens of millions of highly engaged views within mere hours, violently merging the massive, culturally dominant Barbie marketing demographic directly with the unstoppable, highly organized, and fiercely loyal digital fortress of the global ARMY. And the absolute, unquestionable brilliance of this historic cross-cultural interaction was firmly, permanently cemented when Jimin himself publicly responded to the massive Hollywood tribute. Taking directly to his own massive, heavily followed Instagram account, the critically acclaimed BTS vocalist uploaded a deeply charming, highly respectful video where he graciously, officially accepted the massive cinematic artifact. Standing confidently while holding Ken's iconic, heavily customized acoustic guitar, Jimin graciously thanked Ryan, playfully, deeply praised his highly anticipated performance in the upcoming blockbuster film, and essentially, permanently solidified a massive, historic cross-cultural bromance that left the notoriously cynical, deeply entrenched Western entertainment industry completely, utterly speechless. This was absolutely not a heavily negotiated, sterile corporate cross-promotion brokered by a massive, soulless army of legal teams and marketing executives. It was a raw, deeply organic, and intensely mutually respectful acknowledgement between two world-class, heavily dedicated artists operating at the absolute, terrifying peak of their respective global industries. Gosling's massive, undeniably public tribute forcefully, aggressively proved that BTS is not just a highly successful musical group, they are a fundamental, entirely unavoidable foundational pillar of modern global pop culture. Their massive, record-breaking influence is so deeply, permanently woven into the actual fabric of the international zeitgeist that the biggest, most heavily marketed blockbuster movie on the entire planet literally had to forcibly pause its massive, billion-dollar promotional machine to formally, publicly acknowledge their absolute supremacy. When a heavily decorated, historically significant Hollywood superstar willingly strips away his massive ego, publicly surrenders his most iconic, highly coveted movie prop, and openly, proudly declares his absolute awe for a South Korean idol, it is the ultimate, undeniable proof that the heavily guarded, historically xenophobic walls of the Western entertainment establishment have not just been successfully breached, they have been completely, utterly, and permanently obliterated. RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, Lee, and Jungkook did not just temporarily infiltrate the notoriously stubborn, historically exclusionary American pop culture landscape, they forcefully, aggressively conquered it, establishing a massive, unshakable musical empire that forces true, undisputed Hollywood legends to stand up, fiercely pay attention, and passionately, endlessly applaud the absolute, undisputed kings of the 21st century.